Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Fanzone Debate. We're here post Mayhem for another match. Last week, we saw Will Cohen go up against Jack Pinchuk, 0-1s going up against 0-1s. And this week, we got the same type of thing. We got two players who debuted last season, didn't get the win in their debut, but are back to try to get a win on their record and maybe go on a title run. We'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it because both of these players showed a lot of promise in their debut. We got Chadwick Webb going up against Alex Martinez. Chadwick debuted against Bill, which at the end of the day, Bill went on to play for the title in that run. So if you got to lose to somebody in that run, at least he lost to the guy that went on to be a title contender, number one seed in the tournament. Alex lost to Tyler Birch in his debut, who then ended up losing to the person who played Bill in the contender match. So both of these players lost to very good players in their opening matches. Kind of got the short end of the straw there, if you will, but now they're back and they got a shot to go on for the title later in a couple months here. So looking forward to it, seeing what these guys do. We got Brian here on the desk as usual. Brian, my friend, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good today. Here for yet another Fanzone Debate. I think I was here for both of their last matches. So I'm at least familiar with their styles a little bit, but it's interesting to see how they face off against each other.
Yeah, and Cody, you are back. You were here last week with us for the Jack versus Will match. Now you're here for the Chadwick versus Alex. These are kind of the spoiler alert if you didn't watch Mayhem. Cody's the champion, so Cody, one of these people might be playing you at the end of this. You're so have you seen their previous matches? What are your thoughts on Alex and Chadwick going into this debate today?
Yeah, I like judging debates early because soon I can't do it anymore because then I can kind of dictate who I don't have to play. Brian said he booed me for winning. That's sad. No, but I saw Chadwick. I think I saw Chadwick play Bill, and then Bill blocked him, which for picking Harry Potter and Scream. And I believe Alex debated Scream and made me the maddest I've ever been, like as a judge against Tyler. But win or lose, Alex, I heard news that Picture This is no longer happening. It's disbanded. So at this point, Alex is the real winner because Alex doesn't have to show up and do that anymore, which is good for society.
You're telling me they didn't make it through every year of
they didn't make it through the victory. They didn't hold on to do the final league to wrap it up.
Oh my god! I was looking
them.
forward to hearing Koho's thoughts on Moonlight. That's too bad.
I was really thinking about Africa. Like I was really excited to hear Chariots of Fire, but they didn't make it. It's sad.
Honestly, I like Alex so much more knowing that show doesn't exist anymore. But no, I'm really looking forward to this. Let's start talking to the players. Alex, we kid, we joke, we mess with you, but we're happy to have you here. You're back to debate Chadwick. Your thoughts going into it, like I said, 0-1, but I think a strong performance against Tyler. And now you're going up against Chadwick. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's great. I actually remembered we were doing this today. So I actually bothered to watch some of the movies and prepare some arguments. I did do it with Jack Pinchuk's help, though. So if I lose, it's his fault.
I mean,
and good news, I'm the one that killed Picture This. I will take full credit and responsibility. Because that is the most amount of medal that I will ever get from this channel.
Man, the Purple Heart. Give that man the Purple Heart.
Great shit. We're going to talk to Chadwick now. Chadwick, welcome back. You're wearing a Shaun of the Dead shirt. Spoiler alert. But I think you showed a lot of promise in your first match as well. You went up against Bill, which was tough. It's a tough debut match. I know that you have said that you've debated in other leagues before, so this isn't your first. This isn't your first foray into debate. Your thoughts going up against Alex?
No, it's not my first foray. Yeah, debating Bill was hard. I'm hoping it's a little bit more chill with Alex, but I know he's a very sharp guy. Like he said, he's prepared. So, I'm just excited to see like what kind of discussion we can get into. Because for me, that's basically what debate is just really intense, sometimes really intense. film discussion that we're just on opposing sides. You know, it's fine. It's gonna be
Yeah.
fun.
No, that's fair. I love that attitude. So let's get into it. We will start with the rules. This is what's going to happen. So there were 4 questions given to the players based off of categories that they drafted. They are going to debate those questions tonight before our very souls. They will get 1 minute to open their argument, followed by a 5-minute free form, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of the debate, Alex. No, he's debating. Cody, Brian, and I will write on our boards who we thought won the debate. Best 2 out of 3 votes wins the point, and 3 points wins you the match. So
just give Alex a vote too. Just make it fun.
Yeah, that's fair. So any questions as we get into the match? Awesome. All right, let's get into it. Awesome. We are going to kick this off starting with the first category, which was drafted by Chadwick in the category of the Wizarding World. And the question is, who is the best Wizarding World teacher? So pretty simple question, but maybe a little bit loaded. Chadwick, you're going to get to kick us off. You're going to get 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking, and I will come in to give you a 10-second warning when the time comes.
All right, yeah. Best Wizarding World teacher, I chose Professor Lupin. He's basically the John Keating of Hogwarts. If you don't know him, he's from Dead Poet Society. He comes in, he makes learning magic like fun and engaging. He inspires the entire class to come in. He's a very hands-on teacher, you know, very excited when someone gets something right. So he's very encouraging and supportive. He really has like an underdog mentality. So he helps actually start Neville's arc that he goes on through the rest of the franchise by making him go first during the Boggart lesson. Speaking of the Boggart, he like brings that out to engage the entire class and make learning really fun. You know, he has fun with it. He makes all the students laugh by, you know, kind of making fun of Snape at one point. Yeah, and he just basically elevates his subject and is very, very caring about the students learning.
All right, we're gonna move over to Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
The Wizarding World in general, and Hogwarts specifically, is a pretty messed up place. Teachers, headmasters, general staff, and students, they all come and go. No one is safe. But somebody has to teach these kids, and I want to be very clear. McGonagall is the McGonagall. She is one of the most experienced teachers in the school, and she is very experienced in the wild, tricky world of Transfiguration, perpetually the adult in the room arguing against throwing teenagers at wizard Nazis until the problem goes away for the year. She is a leader and a protector of the staff as well as the students, and no one else has her brand of supportive, clear-headed, and kindness mixed with all the sternness of that teacher who knows that roughly 1/4 of her students are Slytherins that will walk all over her if given the chance. She is the best teacher in the whole of the Wizarding World, Professor Minerva McGonagall. She is not an active danger to her students. She is actually very encouraging to all of them, including the weaker ones.
Time. All right, 2 great picks. Lupin versus McGonagall. 5-minute free form when one of you starts talking. I will throw up the 1-minute warning when the time comes. And if any of you talk on too long, I will throw up the let's move on. Don't make me do that or I will be sad. 5-minute free form when one of you starts talking.
Yeah, you're right. McGonagall is actually very experienced. She's been there a very long time. And that's actually kind of like my problem with calling her the best teacher, is because it feels like every single year she has everything scripted. She comes in, she does her lesson, she punishes anybody she sees, you know, but she doesn't actively go out of her way to like inspire her students during her lessons or, you know, really try that hard.
Well, I got to disagree with you. I think she is a very inspiring teacher. Time and time again, we see her not only let Harry off of certain occasions, but also punishing Harry. She is the one that encouraged him to become Seeker. She gives Hermione the Time Turner. She gives Harry the broom that he actually goes on to play Quidditch with. The thing about Lupin is that he is actually an active danger to his students. Once every month, he goes through his werewolf period, and for a big boarding school, that is actually going to be a big problem, because like half of the school by nature is going to want to bend the rules, break the rules for different ends. So someone eventually is going to get hurt. Harry and his friends eventually are going to get hurt, which they do over the course of the year.
So basically, like when you talk about all the things that McGonagall does for Harry, it's not that much with her actually, taking an interest in his life. But even when it is, it's basically her being an administrator. And I feel like that's her role throughout like the entire franchise. We see like maybe 1 or 2 very short lessons with her actively teaching, and then everything else is just her punishing someone, just being very disgruntled. She even like punishes Harry and Ron at the very first lesson, like about being late. I mean, it's a big castle, that had to find their way.
She doesn't punish them. She gives them a talking to, which I think is fairly warranted the first time out. It's Lupin, though, is the one that plays favorites. Lupin has that big Bogart lesson, but that's a lesson that we know for a fact he ripped directly from Dumbledore. All he did was add a sick beat to it. Lupin
did add that sick beat though, and that's how he makes that lesson fun.
But that lesson is fun and interesting and revealing no matter what. Everyone learns everyone's
Not
fear.
really, because if you look at every other Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, none of them are very that engaging. Like Mad-Eye Moody or Bartimaeus.
Well, we never see anyone give that specific lesson.
Downright scary.
The only other person we see give that specific lesson is Dumbledore, and we know that it's pretty much the exact same lesson plan, and it's always engaging. The point of that lesson is everyone learns everyone's fears.
But that being said, Lupin is able to wrangle in like everybody in the class and just make them so excited to learn about Defense Against the Dark Arts, where no one really else has. But I do want to touch on the werewolf comment, because he is not an active danger. There's only like one time in a very weird circumstance that he actually changes later in the movie, but that's not actively during a lesson. He's got everything under control. The administration has let him in to actually teach because they have it under control. And then if you look at the Hogwarts as a whole, they're letting shit in all the time that can endanger students, like Fluffy, the three-headed dog, the Triwizard Tournament. So really, Lupin
these are all things that are a matter of wizard tradition. Some of these things are inherently supposed to be dangerous. Teachers are not inherently supposed to be dangerous. That's why it is such a strange exception, and that's why Lupin is dismissed after only one term.
And Lupin is dismissed, and everybody's sad about it. You can see Harry wants to fight it because he's like, this isn't fair.
Harry wants to fight it because that's his uncle. If all the teachers were always your uncle, you'd always be sad if the
But it's not the fact that Harry he doesn't want him to go because he's kind of got a bond with him through his dad, but it's basically because he was such a fantastic teacher. Like, he can hang out with him after Hogwarts ends if he wants, but he wants him to be there actively teaching because he's the best Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher that class has seen in probably a long time.
Well, that's not to say that means he's the best teacher that they've ever had. I mean,
I'm not saying he's
Harry himself, and I'll say this about Lupin: he teaches Harry specific curses, but those are not things that he teaches to the rest of his students, the rest of his pupils. Whereas McGonagall will give the same lessons to everyone else. From there, her special treatments are much more varied. She has potential favorites, but they're ones that she's specifically trying to help in those specific ways, not just plain favoritism.
All right. We are going to get into the closings. We are going to start with Alex, who has 1 minute when he starts talking.
The best teachers, the ones that we remember, are the ones that we feel supported us along the way, and no one will do that like McGonagall. Not only is she a top shelf experienced teacher and wizard, she is a fearless and eternal defender of her kids, only throwing them toward danger when danger is actually inevitable. Until the time that danger is inevitable, you'll have to get to them through her to get to them. She knows their strengths, she knows their weaknesses, and actually deploys them in the best ways to fit the needs and their actual skill sets. She is the master of the gentle nudge in the right direction, the queen of the disappointed look, the best teacher of the wizarding world, the one, the only Minerva McGonagall. And I'll just yield the rest of the time.
Okay. Finishing about 12 seconds early, we're going to move over to Chadwick, who has 1 minute to close his argument when he starts talking.
Alex's negatives about Lupin are that, you know, he has favoritism and he's an active threat. He's not an active threat. They have that under control. And, you know, he doesn't play favoritism. What he does is he engages the entire class, and then he has one-on-one, you know, teachings with Harry and maybe other students too that we don't see. I'm not sure. But Harry grows through those lessons and really benefits from them. He establishes Neville's arc too. He does so much in such little time that McGonagall has all this time and she kind of barely does anything. Like, we barely see her teaching. She's mostly just running around trying to catch kids out of bed doing weird shit. So that's why I'm saying she acts more as an administrator than she does actively teaching. You know, and so I don't know like what he meant by like deploying the students. Like Lupin looks at students as, you know, students. He says, if I'm proud of anything, it's how much you've learned this year.
Time. Whoo, boy, guys, that was good to kick it off. Man. That was really excellent. Wow. Okay.
My favorite thing is what Tim's going to write on this board each round to make a play.
I couldn't really come up with much last night. The most I had a really good one last night. They argued best movie to win Best Picture, and somebody picked Moonlight, and that won. And I said, I wrote on my board, Moonlight, you won Best Picture. That was the best thing I wrote on my board all night. But otherwise, I wasn't too impressive last night. God damn it.
I'm losing steam.
Well, there wasn't much to say about with the names Bill and who did Bill play? And Rue. I couldn't really come up with much last night. Okay. I'm going to go first. Like I said, I thought this was great. I thought that both players came to play. They knew a lot about their character as well as their opponents, and thought there was a really good back and forth where like we were jumping on each other, but in like a really natural back and forth type way. I thought this was fantastic first fight. So I'm really excited for the rest of this. I went with Alex, actually. I thought that Chadwick had me for most of the fight, but then I thought that Alex's whole thing on like the whole thing about like, yes, there's danger inside Hogwarts, like Chadwick was talking about, like the Triwizard Tournament and Fluffy. There are things that are dangerous inside Hogwarts all the time, and I thought that Alex's hit about like, yes, but the teachers themselves shouldn't be dangerous, and he actually brought up the fact that like he does put Harry and Ron and Hermione like in danger later in the year. I thought was a good hit. And then I thought that his favoritism thing actually, I thought that actually did work. I know Chadwick tried to like kind of bear that down at the end by being like, well, he might be with other students. I don't know, but we never see that in the movies. So this was tough. This was really close. I was going back and forth, but I thought Alex's closing was just a little bit stronger. So I went with Alex. But Brian, where are you leaning?
I gave it to John's lesser-known brother, Chadwick. I thought that he just did a better job as far as the actual question of who is the better teacher, because, I mean, from the very beginning with the John Keating analogy, I thought was pretty appropriate. Talked about how he's inspiring to his students. They went on to talk about how he like teach them one-on-one as well as in the classroom, things like that. Whereas Alex, I thought that, you know, he talked a lot about, you know, how, you know, McGonagall would give him things like the time turner and the broom and that, which that isn't really teaching. And Chadwick pointed out that a lot of things she does is more administrative. And so I just thought as a better teacher, I went with Chadwick.
That's fair. Cody, you're deciding this one.
Brian's so funny. I wish he never quit Roundtable. Damn you, Scott. Anyways,
You're just Scott. Maybe I'll come back.
I may make that trade. Scott, I love you. So when I saw the question, I said, man, Tim sucks. This is a stupid question. And no offense to you, Tim. I love you. But like, I was like, it's clearly McGonagall. Like, what are we doing here? Like, there's like that's where my slam dunk was. And always when the slam dunk is picked, it never wins. I went with Chadwick. Because as it was going on, and me and Tim disagree on the first question per usual. And yeah, what I think how Chadwick kind of attacked it was interesting, of like putting it into the teacher aspect and selling me on how much more of like a principal aspect or administrative of McGonagall really is, and like in the realms of teaching, and like basically is the threat, or like there's threats all around, but like being able to teach their students like real dangers that could come, instead of basically letting them walk into all the dangers around Hogwarts. That was an interesting fight. I thought it was a lot closer, and I thought McGonagall was like the slam dunk easy one, and Alex had me for majority of the round, but I think that closing was really strong by Chadwick, so I had to go Chadwick.
I was just pissed no one picked Flitwick, frankly. But all right, we're going to get into the next question, which was drafted by Alex. It was in the category of actors and actresses. And the question is, what is the best Cary Grant performance? Cody, ears up. Me and Brian, you got to do the heavy lifting on this one, Cody. Alex, you are going to kick it off. You get 1 minute to open your argument when you start.
Cary Grant is the magical child of George Clooney and Robert Downey Jr., sent back in time with a personal mission to flirt with every single classic film actress. At his best, the world devolves around him, and he has to be at the center. The cool, calm wit that's going to figure out whatever it is that needs to be figured out. He's the charm to the charms. He's the level head in the room. What do you do to the level head in the room? You turn up the crazy in the room. Arsenic and Old Lace puts Cary Grant's infamous cool to the test by throwing every sense of stability right out the window, because we don't need that for this movie. Arsenic and Old Lace is his most well-rounded performance, as well as just his flat-out funniest and sweatiest. He is the proper star. The focus never leaves him. And overall, it is just the finest aspect of his career. If you only had to show one or see one, watch Arsenic and Old Lace.
Time. Okay. Great. We're going to move over to Chadwick. Chadwick, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
For this one, I chose Notorious, Alfred Hitchcock film. It's been said that Grant's performances matured over time. He's playing a character who can't fully express his emotions, so he has to rein himself in here. Like when he's normally like doing a bunch of comedy, being very physical, just like Alex was saying in his movie. This one, as far as I know, is one of the only ones where he has to actually rein himself in and have this like underpinning of love that he has for this woman, but he can't show it. He can't show it because she's a vital part of this mission. So like having to like rein himself in, I think it can go against his natural instincts. That is what Cary Grant does in pretty much a lot of other films, like, Bishop's Wife, Arsenic and Old Lace, His Girl Friday, all that stuff. Here he has to actually be a character, and I think he just nails it here.
Time. Okay. Notorious versus Arsenic and Old Lace. 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So you call it his most mature performance, and I wish that most mature meant one of his least interesting. I think Notorious is a fantastic film, but to be perfectly honest, he is kind of put in the backseat behind Ingrid Bergman, the great Ingrid Bergman, behind Claude Rains. He is the top billed actor, but he kind of feels like he's stuck in the backseat to a much more interesting plot, which is this kind of espionage plot that he's only, kind of around.
I think maybe at like first viewing, that's kind of what you might get from it. But then you like watch it again or you pay closer attention and you can see he's doing something completely different here. And I'm not saying that Ingrid Bergman and Claudia Rains are not great in the movie. Oh, they so are. But that's a part of the performance that Cary Grant gives, is that he's not just acting, he's reacting. And he reacts to Ingrid Bergman all the time in the movie, and just like the look on his face, it's very subtle. It's way more subtle than Arsenic and Old Lace. He's like very all over the place in Arsenic and Old Lace, and that's what he's required to do in that movie. And I'm not saying it's not hard to do comedy, and he does it very well. That's just his style of what he normally does, which is why I'm saying the best one is the one where he's actually has to try and actually has to do something different and new and something we haven't really seen before from him. And I think that's what we get in Notorious.
Well, it's something that we haven't seen from him because he's not fantastic at it. Cary Grant was, like I said, he's the cool, calm, level-headed guy in the room. But if you look at his filmography, most of it is he's having dialogues with these famous actresses. He is charming. He is supposed to be all of these incredible things. And here he's just stuck in pining after Ingrid Bergman, which I think most of us could do. I think most of us could pine after Ingrid Bergman if we really had to do it.
See, I think that's like one of the best like actor tricks, is to do something so well you make it look so easy. And
I don't mean that it's easy, but I mean that there are a lot of movies where someone looks at Ingrid Bergman with a sad look on their face that they wish they could kiss Ingrid Bergman.
It's like a sad look, though. It's everything with the tone of his voice, with his facial expressions, with just the look of his eyes. Like, he is acting the shit out of each scene. I mean, it's crafted expertly by Alfred Hitchcock, but he is doing the work here too to match Hitchcock.
It's crafted by Hitchcock, but not crafted by Cary Grant is the thing. In Arsenic and Old Lace, that's a Cary Grant performance where he goes through all of the range of human emotion. He comes home excited about being with his girl. Then he comes home and he's like, "Oh, my aunties are here." And then his world over the course of this night starts to devolve into exasperation, anxiety, terror,
mostly
horror.
Like goofy faces and stuff like that, and it's funny. Like, he has a funny thing, but like you said, everyone else is being crazy too. So
everyone is being crazy. He's not being crazy. He is reacting to the situation, but he's reacting in a completely reasonable way, which is how could this get any worse? And it always continues to get worse.
To where it's like every beat he has to react to someone going like, oh yeah, we put him in the window seat and he has to go the door and stuff like that. So it's like one of the things that he has to be silly.
It seems like I said, it seems easy. Like you said, it seems easy, but it's actually incredibly difficult. I think most actors could not do that. Whereas there are a lot of movies where I think an actor could be asked to pine after Ingrid Bergman. Whereas I don't know how many actors could do this whole broad spectrum of human emotion the way Cary Grant did, at least at the time.
Stewart, you look at modern day Ryan
Jimmy
Gosling.
Stewart could not emote like Cary Grant.
Dude, absolutely.
He could emote three things like Cary Grant could.
Anyways, what I'm saying is it is more subtle. It's more reined in, but that's the thing, is there's nuance to his performance. Like, he's actually doing something different here.
Well, there's nuance between one of two relationships he has, whereas Cary Grant in Arsenic and Old Lace has nuance with him and his girl. He has it with the aunties. He has it with his brother. He has it with the cops. He has it with Teddy. He has all of these other complex relationships that he has to explore, all of which are different. He's trying to protect her.
He's doing the same thing every single time.
He is not with every single one of those relationships. Every single one of those is nuanced. Every single one of them has a different aspect that he's trying to explore.
Time. Okay, Chadwick, we're going to start with you. You get 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Yeah, Arsenic and Old Lace just doesn't demonstrate Cary Grant's range. He's doing the same thing he does in every movie. It's par for the course for him, and it's not elevating himself above like what he could be. In Notorious, because he's directed by Alfred Hitchcock and he's matching that level, he's doing something completely nuanced, completely different than I've ever seen from Cary Grant, to be honest. And every single actor he has to play against, he's doing something different. It's a little tweak, and it's something that an actor has to, mature over, and has to actually learn and grow to actually be able to do such subtle acting as we see from him in Notorious. Whereas, he's all over the place in Arsenic and Old Lace, but it's nowhere near as nuanced as Alex is trying to let you believe. But in this one, he has that underpinning of love that he has an affection for Ingrid Bergman, but he can't show it, and he just sells it so beautifully. It's very emotional.
All right, we're going to move over to Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Straying away from his usual role of winning the girl or winning the girl back, this time he has to hide the bodies. Not only is Arsenic and Old Lace funny, gripping, filled with characters, and the best time ever, but the focus never leaves Cary Grant, not for very long. He brings the jokes, he brings the physicality, he brings the suspense, all of which he seems to have mastered. Cary Grant is doing what he should be, losing every bit of the sanity he walked into that house with. It is his most diverse, it is his most showcasing performance, perfect for every occasion except maybe going to the old folks' home. There really is no comparison. Notorious is a fine film, but Cary Grant is relegated to third from the top, playing a character that is subtle in a movie that is really supposed to be anything but. It's a fairly loud espionage film. It does not serve Cary Grant's strengths in the way that I believe that Arsenic and Old Lace does.
Time. Okay. Once again, woof. All right.
I bet that was the best 7 minutes for Brian and
I like Cary Grant.
Tim to.
I just haven't seen the movie,
Fair.
so
They're both great. Check them out.
Fair.
I've heard very good things about both. I watched a lot of Hitchcock last year. This was not one of them that I saw.
Jimmy Stewart gets a lot of praise, but Cary Grant is like top notch to me. But
it's Cary Grant in what's the one where Charade, is that Cary Grant?
Yeah.
That's
yes.
It's one of them.
Is that the one you had to deep cut? Is that?
No, I had to
Maybe
deep
it was
cut one of
me.
the Hitchcock ones.
Was that the one they put Audrey Hepburn with, like a creepy older man? Oh wait, that's all of her movies. Sorry.
That's all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Before we get started,
You basically put a Halloween skeleton
I have
next
to
to it.
pause real quick. So 1 sec, guys. Sorry. All right, we're gonna get the votes in. We're gonna start with Cody.
Yeah, Alex kind of described Cary Grant like perfectly. I always try to like say like he is like, I think doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. I think he's hilarious. I think he's one of those actors that is just like before his time, could be like a Robert Downey Jr., Jim Carrey. So it's fun. Both movies I enjoy for the most part. One of these movies I absolutely love. And I had to like break it down because I think what they were trying to argue was like it was best performance. Like it didn't have to like say something extra or be different than the rest of Cary Grant's performance. It just had to be the best inside the movie as what it was, like, or what's the best that rises. And like and I think it kept getting brought up, like he does the same thing he's always done, like in this one. But if it's the best of what he does, like I think I gotta go with that. It's Alex, I think, overall was able to share why Cary Grant is better in Arsenic Old Lace and what does it, even though he doesn't do anything groundbreaking. But I don't think that's like the definition of what this fight had to be. It just had to be the best of the performances. So that's why I went with Alex.
Okay, I'll go next. I went with Chadwick. I haven't seen the movies, but and I honestly I don't know if I've seen Cary Grant in more than like 3 movies, so I couldn't tell you much about his personality. So it's basically going off of what the players were saying, and I went with Chadwick because Chadwick had me convinced that Cary Grant, what he's doing in Arsenic and Old Lace, isn't anything special beyond what he always does, and that the new stuff that he's doing under the guidance of Hitchcock is really impressive. Alex's main argument against Notorious was like, oh, other people could do that type of performance. There are other people who could do that. And Chadwick had me, and he even brought up examples, and Chadwick had me convinced that, like, no, this is something that was very specific for Cary Grant, was against type, but also really powerful and worked. So, having not seen the movies, Chadwick had me totally convinced. So, Brian, you're deciding this one.
You're still the odd man out because I voted for Alex.
Damn.
Yeah, I just thought he did a better job pitching. Because I heard a lot from Chadwick about why Notorious is something new, is something different from him, but not why that was better. And then Alex actually, even pointed out that maybe that's because that's not his strong suit, and this is a movie that served his strengths. I know he said in his closing. I also thought he did a good job of kind of turning Chadwick's words back upon him. Like, Chadwick talked about how sometimes, they just do it so good they make it look easy. And then later on, he calls doing the comedy easy, and he says, well, that's because he's so good at it. And it's just kind of flipped that around on him. So I thought it worked out very well.
All right. So it is 1-1. We are going to move on to the next question, which was drafted by Chadwick in the category of directors. And the question is, which Edgar Wright character would make the best roommate? So Chadwick, we're going to kick it off with you. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
For a second, I had to actually think about all the movies, and then the right answer just popped out to me. If you look up best roommate in the dictionary, it's going to be Wallace Wells from Scott Pilgrim versus the World. This guy, there's no thing you can describe about this guy that's not, or that you could describe about best roommate that's not a trait of Wallace's. He's incredibly kind, but he's snarky, so he's fun and he's funny. He shares everything, including his bed with Scott. He gives good advice. He listens. He'll tell you if you're fucking up, but he'll also let you make your own decisions. He cooks. He cleans. He's not demanding, but he expects more sometimes. He'll stay in and watch action movies with you, or he'll go out and support your band or whatever endeavor that you have. He'll support that. He's friendly with your friends and family. So he's just really fun staying in, really fun going out, and he just will help you do anything you need to in the place.
Okay. We're going to move over to Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
So I have roommates, 2 of them. One of them I've known for years, Matthew. He's fine. The other one, who lives just right down the hall, I'm not sure we've ever technically met, but it's an ideal situation. The rent always gets paid on time. The mail gets brought in. The trash gets taken out. We all have steady jobs, places that we go to on weekends, so we all get the house to ourselves at different points in time. If I hear a girl somewhere in the house, stay quiet or just leave the house. These are things we all would hope we would all expect from prospective roommates. Now, if Matthew dies, which I hope he doesn't, and I had to replace him with any Edgar Wright character, I choose John from Last Night in Soho. Fashion student, helpful friend. Please sign on the dotted line, John. You can move in whenever you want. There's really no trouble, except for the fact that Matthew was still alive. I've seen how Wallace treats his roommates, and quite frankly, I am appalled, and that would never stand.
Time. Oh boy. Okay. So 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So, like I was saying, Wallace just evicts Scott. Just straight up kicks him out.
He kind of deserves
says
it,
you need
Scott's
to leave. There's no notice.
Guy.
Scott is kind of a weird guy. I'm also kind of a weird guy.
No, I'm not saying you're weird like Scott. I'm just saying Scott basically doesn't bring anything to the equation. Like you said, you expect a roommate to pay the rent and actually contribute, which Scott doesn't do.
No, that's fine. I also would really like to have my own bed. To not and if we are going to share a bed, which is strange, I would hope to not have to be there for the threesomes that you have.
That's the thing. He apologizes for it, when nothing happens, But all jokes aside, that's the thing. That's a relationship that Wallace has with Scott. They've talked it over, I'm sure, about hey, this is the place. Like, is this cool with you? We don't get a scene of them doing that, but I'm sure they talk all the time. And, Wallace.
They do talk all the time. And then what happens afterward is Wallace immediately texts every detail of Scott's personal life to someone else, to Scott's sister, who I'm sure Scott isn't a big fan of that.
He needs help trying to figure out Scott's problems. Like, they're
all asked for his help. He didn't ask for his sister's help. If he wanted his sister's help, he would go. And I know that because when he wants his sister's help, he goes to see her or he tries to go see her at the coffee shop.
Scott doesn't have a problem with him doing that. So it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's all I'm okay. All right. I need to talk about John now, because John, we don't actually have any really good, examples of him being a good roommate. The only context that we see John is in his relationship with Eloise and trying to get with her. So every single time he's nice, it's trying to get with Eloise.
We know that he is a college student. We know that he has this crush on his Eloise girl. But hang on, but the college thing is important. The college student thing is important because it means that John is going to be at like one of 4 places. He is going to be at school. He is going to be at home studying. He will be out perhaps drinking with his friends if he has spare time, or he will be asleep. Those are the 4 things that John will do. And if he has time to go mess around with Eloise, that is great. What I get from the relationship that he has with Eloise is that John is a very nice guy. I don't mean nice guy in the pejorative. I mean nice guy in the sense of he gets stabbed for this girl that he knows.
Sure.
He helps her through this incredibly strange, dark time in her life just because he wants to be there for her.
What I'm hearing is that John is a sweet guy trying to pick up a girl. That's fine. That is the context that we see him in most of the time. You're assuming a lot of things about John that we just don't see. We don't see him.
Nobody has a bad thing to say about John.
Because he gets along with all
the other students. At the end of the film, he's met Eloise's grandmother. She seems to like him as well.
Yeah,
we know for a fact that he has several friends that he goes out drinking with. And you know what? John buys the beers. So if that's what I'm getting as a roommate, that is fine. I don't need to have some kind of like intricate personal relationship.
Anything about John?
I don't know anything about that guy that lives right down there. He can hear me talk about him. And yet we have a perfectly acceptable.
I'm sure your roommate has nothing to do with John. We don't know.
I'm talking about John as a potential prospective roommate, and I'm also talking about Wallace as a potential prospective roommate. I would much rather take my chances with John than everything I know about Wallace.
You can take all the chances with John as you want. That would be your prerogative. But we see so many good examples of Wallace being a fantastic roommate. He has a unique situation with Scott. That's fine. Scott brings a lot of problems to him. He has to text his sister and try to figure out what's going on with Scott. They have that kind of relationship. You don't have that relationship with your roommate. You might not have that relationship with John if he was your roommate. I'm not sure. But that's the kind of relationship there. Now, you talk about Wallace just sharing like one bed and one room. That's the situation that Wallace is in, but he makes the best of it. And he shares everything. Scott doesn't bring anything to the table, and then he has to kick Scott out because Scott's not being the good roommate. Wallace,
and that would be fine. I'm completely fine with Wallace saying Scott, this is not working. The fact of the matter is he does it with absolutely no notice.
Time. Okay. We're going to go to Alex first. Alex, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
John is clearly the better choice. John is the man. Not only is he a reliable drinking buddy, he will take a knife to the gut for you, as well as talk you through the most dire mental situations. He just wants to be there for the people in his life. That's his role in life, as well as in the film that he's in, to support. Wallace is just another stressor in Scott's life, and that worries me. Whether it be messaging people the unsavory details of your life, roping you into calls with your ex, kicking you out on a random Tuesday after subjecting you to having to see him naked. Which one would you prefer? Who would you rather go home to at the end of a very long day? For me, it's John. John, as far as we know, has no clear downside, as opposed to the many downsides of the boyfriend stealing, constant, sometimes naked Wallace. It's just not a difficult decision for me to make. John has absolutely nothing wrong with him as far as we know.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Chadwick. Chadwick, you have 1 minute to close your argument when you start talking.
Just like Alex kept repeating, John doesn't have any problems as far as we know. That's exactly the point. We don't see him in the context of a roommate. We only see the things that he wants you to see in context to him trying to date Eloise. He doesn't mean to take a knife for Eloise. He just gets stabbed, unfortunately. But Wallace, we get to see all of the goods and some of the, not so greats about Wallace, but Wallace is always there to take advice. He's never trying to put himself in that situation. And at one point he had enough and he has to say goodbye to Scott. But that being said, they've had a unique relationship. The naked thing is a whole thing that about their specific relationship. But if you're not bringing all those, problems in, and if you're not actually, if they had a better living situation, I think Wallace would make absolutely the better roommate. Like I said, incredibly kind, funny. He listens. He'll talk to you. He'll give advice. Easily the clear choice.
Man alive. I have so many things I want to say, and I'm going last.
I have heard some shit tonight.
All I'll say is, before it's my turn, I got to rewatch Scott Pilgrim in theaters when they did that re-release a couple years ago, and it was the first time I've seen it since it came out, and I loved it. I saw Last Night in Soho, and that movie is a pile. So that being said, I hate that movie. That movie sucks. Brian, you are going to go first.
I'm voting for Alex this time. I think that they both gave a lot of positives about why their person is the better roommate. I think that Chadwick actually had me quite a bit on Wallace, talking about all the positives for him. But it kind of turned in the last half of the argument. I know that his attacks on Alex were talking about, you're assuming a lot of things you don't see, but then the problem was he said in this argument, as well as in the last debate, twice he said, well, you don't see this scene, but this might have happened. And so he basically was doing the same thing that he's saying that Alex didn't do. So that kind of negated that thing. It came down to, I think what decided it for me was just the fact that Alex pointed out that, even if we have not seen his John in a roommate situation, just the qualities that you have, if there's no downsides, which we have seen downsides definitely for Wallace.
Okay. Cody.
So I've seen both of these movies once. I'm famous on not liking Scott Pilgrim, just because of bad experience. I haven't watched it in many, many years. Did not know who the hell either one of you were talking about, to be honest with you. All I know is there was one time where Chadwick goes, well, you're assuming a whole lot of Wallace or of John and saying this person's fine and blah, blah, but you don't know that. But what I did hear is something about sharing a bed and threesomes, and that seems to be something that checked off the list, and that seems like a fucking nightmare to me personally. So overall, I think the list kept getting stacked against Wallace as a human, and sharing a bed. Not saying that this is any sway, but if I had to pick a roommate, sharing a bed would be the complete worst person in the history of the universe, but I went with Alex.
All right, so my vote doesn't count. I also went with Alex.
You went opposite again? Okay.
And I think that I thought that Chadwick did a really good job of talking up Wallace. And I thought that he did a good job of separating, like, there are things that are specific to him and Scott's relationship that doesn't have to carry over in. And I thought that actually worked really well in Chadwick's favor. But the thing for Alex was like, Alex talked a lot about, I thought his whole comparison of like what we know about, I already forget the character's name. Was it John? John's character, what we know about him is really good. And so he would be a type of person that would just at the very core, what we know about him, make a good roommate, even despite the fact that we don't see him in a roommate situation. I thought that worked really, really well. So I went with Alex as well. But that means we're moving on to the final question. And Alex is up 2-1. So Chadwick does need to hit this in order to send it to the bonus. And the question was drafted by Alex in the category of DC. The question is, what is the most disappointing action scene in a DCEU film? Or Worlds of DC, if you're not Tim when he's drunk writing these questions. I'm very excited about this one. This is going to be fun. So we're going to kick it off with Alex. Alex, you get to start it off 1 minute when you start talking.
Do you remember the hype for Wonder Woman 84? Do you remember the trailer? Pedro Pascal in con face, Kristen Wiig in a black dress, fireworks while you're in a plane, the music that all crescendos to a shot of machine guns firing, Steve Trevor saying, you know what you have to do. The trailer promising a new era beginning as a tiny and adult Diana run toward this new chapter, all leading to this critical moment, the reveal of the reassembled armor of Asteria. The wings detach, she hits her weird version of the Wakanda Forever pose, and boom, it goes nowhere in particular. It's just another day, another time the action in a trailer let us down in the DCEU. She fights Cheetah, by the way. Not that it's much of a fight. Cheetah mostly just bounces off of her and then eventually gets electrocuted. You know, Wonder Woman stuff.
Time. God, that movie's trash. Okay. We're going to move over to Chadwick. Chadwick, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Yeah, honestly, speaking of hype and great trailers, you know, if you saw Man of Steel, the trailer when it came out, I know myself and a lot of other people were very, very excited for this. Like a new Superman. Could this be the next iteration of that great Christopher Reeve Superman? No, it's not. I think the movie is decent all around, but I feel like it really lets us down when it starts to get into that third act. This could have been a big start for the DCEU franchise and something that we could be so excited about. But this action scene that we get in the it is the Smallville street fight between Superman and Zod's cronies. It's just so much like mayhem and just like, you know, just destruction. It really disappoints on the actual action sequence itself, the character of Superman, and the rest of the franchise. It really sets that tone for this entire franchise is really going to go nowhere, and it really let us down on Superman specifically.
Okay. So Smallville street fight, Wonder Woman versus Cheetah, 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Let me get into mine real quick. You know, this is basically this whole action thing. It's very long. It's like 10 minutes long or 8 minutes long, something like that. But really what happens is it just looks like a video game. So it's really, just a lot of punching, a lot of flying really fast. One character flying really fast into the other and destroying a town. And you talk about yours going nowhere. Mine actually goes nowhere. They fight for a second, they destroy a town, and then they just kind of all leave. Yours actually has some stakes. Yours has a character die. Cheetah dies at the end. there's stakes at yours. There's a resolution at the end of your action sequence. And the thing is, I understand that you're saying the trailer really hyped it up so much, but really, I don't see why you would be so excited about that action sequence in particular when the rest of the movie is not good at all.
Well, the problem is that there is no next fight. With Man of Steel, you know that the ultimate endgame isn't Superman fighting Feora, or it's just not this. This is the second to last fight, or the third to last fight. With Wonder Woman fighting Cheetah, this is the last fight of the movie because she doesn't fight Maxwell Lord. She talks him down is the only way to get to him. So really, the set piece of the last of the final action set piece of Wonder Woman 84 is a dimly lit fight that ends underwater with electricity, something that famously cheetahs hate, apparently. It's also not a well-constructed action sequence. I would say that Man of Steel just looks like that. Like, you describe it as just stuff moving around. That's how Man of Steel just looks. When it's not Superman flying, it is basically God of War, brought to live action.
But not like exactly. It just looks like a video game, and that's exactly the standard that it's set for like the rest of the franchise. I mean, even and to talk about like your action sequence and the hype for it, I don't understand, because even the first Wonder Woman movie, that was a great movie, had an even more disappointing action sequence at the very end of that. So it feels like the standard was already set for Wonder Woman, and the fact that Wonder Woman also got her own first impression in a movie that was great with the first Wonder Woman, but this was Superman's first chance to make a really good impression, and this action sequence was where it started to go, wait, this is not the Superman you know and love, and it's gonna go downhill from here.
There's you say make a first impression. There had been Superman in living memory. There had not been a live action theatrical release Wonder Woman movie. Yet that was that was a 2017 movie, and the strongest criticism of the 2017 Wonder Woman is that the final fight wasn't satisfying. So yes, I had hoped at the end of this one that they would recover, that they would see those criticisms
after
and
you were
improve,
watching,
and it absolutely didn't. You're right. Man of Steel is the first in this DCEU series. So they don't really have anywhere. They don't have anywhere to go but forward. Whereas Wonder Woman 84, this final fight felt like an even more dramatic step back.
No, because like we've been there time and time again with the last action sequences in the thing, or maybe even second to last, not being that great. And this was the first one in Man of Steel that we see where there's no stakes, there's no personality to the fight. You have Superman just like walking casually up to the military people at the end of the fight, being like, and then them going like, he's no villain. But it's like, shouldn't Superman be going to check on people that they just put in danger?
Well, Superman is getting like 3-on-1 by people that are exactly like
him.
him.
But it's not interesting.
Superman's a little like busy. He's not just hanging out. Whereas my fight is a 1-on-1, and basically all that they came up with was Asteria's wings go like this.
Here's the thing, that you're actually downplaying your action sequence a little bit here, because there is a lot of really intriguing stuff. Because she shows up in the winged suit, and then you have Cheetah basically ripping the suit to pieces and coming at her. Not to mention,
I'm glad that they spent all of that time building up, all of that screen time building up, telling a whole story about getting this armor. About this armor, doing a whole flashback, and then doing a post-credit scene, and then the armor is ripped in minutes.
Oh boy. All right. Chadwick, you get to close first. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
Man of Steel had a real shot to like set this franchise on a really great course and give us a really good Superman that we can see, because it just hasn't been happening, and it really let us down, especially with that action sequence. I know we said it's not the last one, but this is the moment, this action sequence where we see, oh, this isn't the Superman that we know and love. This is just going to be another disappointing character. And yeah, Wonder Woman already got her moment. You could just go watch that first movie. We don't have any good Superman stuff in the DCEU. When we get to the fight in 1984, we already know that's a very bad movie, so we're not even excited about it. Maybe you were in the trailer, but yeah, it's not disappointing. The movie itself is disappointing because Man of Steel was actually kind of interesting. It's an interesting character study up until they ruined it with that action sequence that just looks so terrible. It's actually kind of engaging to watch her fight Cheetah in that movie because she's just clawing at her and coming at her, and there's a resolution where there's not in Man of Steel.
Not in Man of Steel. Strike it from the record. We're going to move over to Alex. Alex, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Like it or not, the trailer is where you start to build excitement, where you start to build hype for that movie. Wonder Woman 84 is a chore with a promise of a good reward at the end. You hope you can that they can recover from the fumble while you're watching it happen. And yet, despite trailer, all of the pictures, posters, promotion, screen time devoted to this, to the history of this piece of Amazonian lost treasure, the final served product is a very mellow action finale. That is the secondary villain doing parkour, bouncing off walls before being electrocuted by loose wiring. Say what you want about Man of Steel, but Soups was actually involved in those fights. They went to that IHOP. They went to that Sears. They actually threw those things. Whereas in Wonder Woman 84, they just tumble into a lake together.
Time. How dare you bring up IHOP in those promotions? Okay. Man, 2013 was such a time. I went and saw that movie at midnight. And I remember being so fucking excited, and I saw them go into the IHOP, and I just, oh man. Okay. Oh shit. Oh. That movie came out the summer before my senior year of high school.
I'm glad I didn't watch it until
I feel like a young boy and an old boy all at the same time. Because Brian, how do you feel about that? Man of Steel came out the summer before my senior year of high school.
No comment.
Does that upset you?
Let me see. I've been out of high school at that point for like 23 years. So
That's how old I was.
wait, summer before? It was only 19 years.
Yeah. Okay. You guys are good.
You don't look a day over 25, Brian.
I agree. I think Brian's very good looking. Okay. So, whoa.
Hey.
Okay.
You're in this community too long.
Sorry. Payson's on call. Some of his energy was just sweeping in. This was interesting, and I know I'm going to get some flack for it, but here's why. The DCEU, the majority of it is bad. I agree, but at its core, it's about characters I love. So even though the movies are bad, I enjoy watching Man of Steel. I enjoy watching BVS, even though I get upset by them and some of the decisions they make. I love Superman. I love Batman. I love the Suicide Squad. I love Wonder Woman. So like even though the movies piss me off, I enjoy going to those worlds. That's why I like The Hobbit. It's why I like the Star Wars prequels. Even though the movies are bad, I like being in those characters' shoes in the world. So, but that being said, one of these scenes I actually really like. And one of these scenes I think is dog shit. So I had to kind of put that all aside. To be clear, I think Chadwick's scene is actually dope. Every time I watch that movie, I fucking love that scene. And I think Alex's scene is bad. But that being said, I went with Chadwick because I thought that Chadwick overall, I thought his whole thing about like, you're saying the trailer got you excited. That's cool. But you have 2 hours of a bad movie leading up to a really bad action scene. So if you were still excited about a cheetah fight after 2 hours of a bad movie, like that's on you. That really worked for me because that's how I felt in the theater. I remember being pumped to see Cheetah versus Wonder Woman. We kind of got to see a little bit of it in the White House fight. And then that was disappointing. So by the time we get to the end one, it's just, you know, like just super like whatever. Like, so you should be disappointed already. You shouldn't be waiting to be so excited. So I thought that worked really well. And I thought that he did, even though I disagree with him, he did a good job of saying, like, if you were expecting one thing from Superman and this is what you get, and you weren't ready for it or excited for it, that it could be very disappointing. It happened to work for me personally, but based on the argument, I thought Chadwick did a very good job. And also the barb that he threw in about, we already saw Wonder Woman 2017, which was a very good movie, but the ending was bad. So why would you be disappointed? Why would you expect them to do any better in the sequel when they did just as bad in the first one? I thought that was a really good hit too. So I disagree with the pick, but I go with Chadwick. So Brian, you're going next.
Yeah, I had the same thing where I had to try and determine, disappointment in what context. Because, like you said, in one case, it's a matter of, the movie up until this point was good and the fight was disappointing, or is it, from before the movie, the trailer promised a certain fight, and when you got to that fight, it turned out to be disappointing. I think they both can count as disappointing. It's just a matter of what context you look at it. Personally, I really liked Man of Steel. I hated Wonder Woman 84, but of course, I put all that aside and just look at the debate itself. But even in that context, I did vote for Alex. I thought that he just did a better job of talking about how, the promise of everything you thought we were going to get in that final fight. Not necessarily in the whole movie, but in that fight, it looked like it was going to be cool when he got to it. It was like you said, it's, she bounced off her and she tumbled in a lake. Whereas Man of Steel, some people were disappointed by the movie, but I think that in the context of the rest of the movie, I didn't think that the fight was that big of a drop off at all.
All right, Cody, so you're deciding this one. Are we moving on to the bonus round, or do we have a winner?
So both movies suck really bad. One, I wish I was on the planet when Man of Steel, when Superman's parents dies, because it gets me out of the movie faster. And Wonder Woman 84 ruined Christmas. Remember it ruined Christmas. So I was different than Shocker. I'm different than Tim. I took it as most disappointing action scene. The movie really didn't play any factor into me whatsoever, because I don't think it can. Because overall, I had to go with just disappointing action scene. Because, spoiler alert, most DCUs have disappointing action films and a boring fucking movie that you get to the action scene, half of you guys are asleep. Like, it's awful. But, so where I had to go with is, I think the takes on, the trailer, grabbing hype and bringing you in and wanting to see what happened with that, that would have got it. And I think I even asked, my famous thing after seeing this movie, does the gold suit mean anything in Wonder Woman? Because they play it up like this thing in the trailer and they shit all over it and they don't like the scene. It's terrible overall. So I ended up going with Alex because I think it was an overall painting, and I think Chadwick fought the movie, and I think that was work if it's disappointing movie, or vice versa if the movie comes into it. But when it goes scene, and there was even a moment in the fight where Chadwick goes, I think you're downplaying your action scene a little bit. And Alex goes, yeah, I am. Because it is the fight and basically how it works. So it just ended up working. I think it was a lot closer, but that's what I had to end up taking into account.
All right. So with that means your winner is Alex Martinez. We are going to move into post-match interviews. Chadwick, we're going to start with you. I thought you played really great tonight. That was a tough match. I think going into this, I think us as judges always go into these 0-1 matches, maybe kind of let's see what they do. They haven't played in a while. Is this going to be any good? I thought you and Alex both played fantastic. This was a really, really good debate, and I can't wait to see what you do next. But I know you obviously want to come out with the win. You come into these matches wanting to win. Didn't quite happen today, but again, I think you played great. Anything you would have done differently? How are you feeling post-match here?
So, I mean, I'm always trying to change up my style sometimes, try to figure out what works, what doesn't, so that I can actually get better. Because, I think I'm good, but it's one of those things to where, I don't know if I would describe myself as great. So it's one of those where I just want to sharpen my skills. So I prepared a lot, but I didn't script anything out. I didn't, do anything like that. So I was trying to go more off the cuff here. I think it worked well sometimes, and then sometimes maybe not. And I think it's just a matter of the fact that, I'll say Alex was actually really fun to debate. It wasn't like that stressful. He was just a really, really cool guy and just really fun to go back and forth with. But he was also very hard. He had a lot of really good points that I was like, shit, okay, I didn't think of that. That I tried to counter and I tried to come back with, and not every time you can come up with a satisfying counter on the spot. So that's the nature of debate. And I didn't agree with every single ruling from the judges either, but I thought no matter if I disagreed, they're all well thought out rulings and stuff like that. So yeah, I think this was just all around a really good well thought match that I wish would have went a different way. I wish we could have actually just gone to the blind round to see, because I do think it was a very 50-50 even kind of split between me and Alex. And I think that's why it was so fun, is because at any question I was like, one of us could have this. I don't know who, but it was just, it's just really, really fun. So I hope to go on and kind of keep having fun like that. It's more fun debating Alex than Bill. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's fair. And honestly, 3 out of the 4 debates tonight were split decisions. So, it was close all the way around. And I think you did fantastic, Chadwick. I'm excited to see what you do next. We're looking forward to having you back next season. We definitely will. So, Chadwick, can't wait to see you back. We're going to bring in the winner tonight, Alex. Alex, you seemed very excited and maybe even a little bit shocked that you won, didn't have to go to the bonus round. And I'm going to be completely honest, Alex. We were talking about the match last night, me and Brian, and I said, I thought Alex did okay in his first match, but Chadwick's really good. This is going to be interesting. You came to play tonight, man. Like, I thought you debated really, really well. I think a marked improvement from your first debate against Tyler. How are you feeling? You got to be excited.
I feel great. This is a not usual arena that for me. I much prefer playing trivia. This is that's stuff I can prepare. I can look at who directed stuff. This is more an opinion based thing. Some of your knowledge helps, but my opinions on film are sometimes a little bit strange. And y'all are ciphers to me. I don't know y'all that well, so I can't ever tell whenever like, oh, that was a good round for me.
That's fair. Alex, this does mean that you're going to move on in this title picture. You're going to play the winner of last week's match, which, although it already aired, I would like to keep a little bit of surprise for those who haven't maybe seen it yet. So you're going to be playing the winner of Will Cohen and Jack Pinchuk. Your thoughts?
Both of them are very interesting players. I think one of them would be an absolute nightmare, and one of them would go really well for me because I just know one of those two players better. I know how they think. I know what strengths they would put up for it. I definitely would rather see one than the other.
That's fair. Alex, I'm looking forward to seeing you back for the next one. Can't wait to see it. So congrats on a very impressive win tonight. And let's get final thoughts, starting with Cody.
Yeah, I'm going to be brutally honest, because I always am. When I saw Alec and Chadwick as the match, because Tim does this lovely thing is I need somebody but doesn't tell us who's playing because he knows maybe sometimes we wouldn't volunteer. I think that's how I got into Jack and Will's match. But overall, I saw this and I saw both people's debates originally, and I was like, I think this could go bad, personally. Because I think that showed because they never did it before. Today was a complete polar opposite of what I expected and what we got. Alex could be a force. I really do. Because, like, the way he's able to pick out plans and kind of, like, show you, like, present his answer as, like, the correct answer. I went with Chadwick on the first question, but Alex sold me on the last three. Like, sold me convincingly. So, like, I think that's very powerful. But I also, if I was 0-2 or, like, 1-1 or new and had to play Chadwick, I'd be pissed. Because I think Chadwick was very close to winning today. And he's 100% right. Like, I disagree with every judge that ever votes against me. Like, you're 100% correct, and you probably hate me tonight. I will 100% agree with that statement. So you're not wrong. But I think you were so close in all your fights, like you could have easily won these. Like, if it was up to Tim, you would have won probably tonight. I think he voted like he went against me and Brian a few times. So no, I would say that Chadwick has like a bright future. Starting 0-2, I could see him in a title picture next year, 100%. I think they picked similar stuff that were so in each other's like DCU and Wizarding World. I think is in Alex's wheelhouse. So like there was no separation there. Couldn't like work against. They're both strong in it. So I think picking different categories and building up strengths in there could play different for Chadwick if he tries.
Yeah, Brian, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, I thought they both did a great job. I think they both showed a marked improvement over their previous debates. Not their last one was bad, but they definitely could see them elevated a level. Especially Chadwick, I know from his interview at the end here, he has the right attitude. He's like, going, he tries to improve himself. He tries to see what he can change up, use a different approach. He talked about how he's a little more off the cuff this time and not relying so much on reading notes, things like that. And I think that's the best thing you can do in debate is to, kind of try new things and see what works and see what doesn't, and then make those changes the next time and get better and better. So that was great. Alex, just like you said, came to play this time. Looking at the answers that were given in the chat on paper, I was like, he's got uphill battle on a couple of these, but he actually managed to sway me on them. So he just pulled out the win.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight at Fanzone Debate. I want to thank Cody and Brian for judging with me. Thank you to Chadwick and Alex for playing. And also thank you to Kirk and Mark behind the scenes for helping coming up with questions and judging other matches. So thank you guys. We will see you very soon with the next match. Next week, we have Robert Kastner going up against Nazario. Oof. We'll see you then. Until then, bye.
Go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.